Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. What I'd like to do is to talk a little bit about what nursing home and assisted living facility look like in general, and then what that looks like for the Medicaid population from kind of the consumer perspective, and as we think about kind of being prepared for a growing aging population and some of the issues around quality. From the kind of Medicaid perspective, I think it's important to keep in mind that what we see is a system, even though we've contracted out these services to manage care, the system's really operating still like we're in fee-for-service. We still come to the legislature and ask you to raise rates, and we haven't really gotten to that place where we're actually letting the market really work to improve what's available and to really make use of what's available. We think because we still operate like it's fee-for-service on the long-term care side, that there's really some missed opportunities, specifically around improving quality in nursing homes, and also around really growing assisted living as a more community-based, less restrictive option for folks who need some kind of assistance. So I'll go through that in a little bit more detail. I've included in the first two charts, I've just pulled some information from HHSC's latest regulatory services report. And what I thought was really interesting here is a couple of things. One is you can see pretty quickly how fast assisted living is growing in the state of Texas overall. I mean, I know in Austin, you can't turn a corner without seeing a new assisted living facility going up. And I think these numbers bear that out. 17.8% growth from 2013 to 2017. Nursing homes also continue to grow, much slower, but they continue to grow. And when we think about kind of the Medicaid piece of this, clearly Medicaid's a huge payer on the nursing home side. There's some new numbers out today from Kaiser Family Foundation that say in Texas about 62% of all nursing home residents are getting some help from Medicaid. The flip side is, and this is actually the first time I've heard the number from the previous witness from HHSC, 39% on the assisted living facility side, so clearly a much smaller participation from assisted living in the Medicaid program. I think the other piece that's interesting, if you go to the second slide or page 3, is the occupancy rates for these facilities. We have plenty of capacity when it comes to nursing facility beds and assisted living facility beds. And in fact, it looks to be from the HHSC data that the actual occupancy in both of these is slowing down. It's actually on the decline. And that's pretty consistent with what we've seen on the Medicaid funding of nursing home beds, is that that's actually been pretty flat. And I think a lot of that is the reflection of the investment that y'all have made in home and community-based services and making the home and community-based Medicaid program a real robust option. So as that program continues to grow, I think you'll see a continued flattening and potentially a decline on nursing homes. There's also sort of a kind of consumer choice issue here, is that people prefer to be in their homes. We know from our own membership, anytime we survey them on a variety of different long-term care issues, about 90% always say they want to age in place in their own home. And I think we're seeing that kind of bear out in the options that people are choosing when they have an option. So if we kind of think about the opportunities within Star Plus as a Medicaid payer for nursing homes and assisted living, I think on the nursing home side there's some missed opportunities, and they're particularly around quality. We have some serious quality issues with our nursing homes in Texas, and I've given you sort of a list of different examples of where we show up rather poorly when it comes to quality. We have the highest percentage of one-star states when you look at the Medicare 5-star rate, one-star nursing homes when you look at the Medicare 5-star rating system. We have nearly 1 in 4 nursing homes has serious multiple serious violations. So we've got some challenges. That's not to say that every nursing home is bad or that we don't have good nursing homes out there, but we do have some serious challenges. I think on the assisted living side, it's a little bit more of a black box. We don't know that much about what's going on in the assisted living facility world. The Sunset Advisory Commission back in 2015, when they did the review of all the Health and Human Services agencies and consolidated DADs, made an agency direction that DADs needed to start actually putting the survey results from the annual inspections on the website so that consumers could see that information and others could see it. Up until then, that information hadn't been available. I went back this week and just kind of looked to see what is available if I was looking for assisted living for my parents or another loved one, and it's very hit and miss. And I think some of that is because that website is just ramping up, but there's very little information out there about assisted living. And I think while there's an opportunity to grow assisted living within the Medicaid world, I think the state and the MCOs need to know more about what's going on in those assisted living facilities in order to be able to make good choices. I think consumers need to know more about what's going on in order to make those choices. Part of the challenge is likely that the state is the only regulator of assisted living, whereas on the nursing home side, we have both a state component and a federal component because of the Medicare and Medicaid participation. I wanted to make a point, if you go to the next slide, about Quip. We think...
Can I just...
Yeah, sure.
I'm looking at your presentation, and I guess it's the first page after the last bullet point. It's talking about the 328 facilities that have had serious violations. And it says the state collected fines from only 22. Why is that? Do you have any sense?
There are a couple of issues. One is that the state has a law on the books that essentially says because nursing homes are regulated, they're licensed by the state, but they also have to, if they want to participate in Medicare and or Medicaid, they have to have that federal certification. And the state contracts with the federal government to kind of do the surveying on the federal piece. And there's a law in Texas that says if a facility has a violation that falls under both a state violation and a federal certification violation, they can only collect one fine. And often that fine that's collected is at the federal level.
Okay, so then you do believe that fines are being collected, just not by the state?
Not for licensing violations, that's right. The other piece of this is something that we believe has been corrected as through the passage of House Bill 2025 last session, which was to address the broad nature of something called the right to correct, which allows nursing facilities to correct serious violations. That law changed that to some extent. It's still ramping up, and these are numbers prior to that going into effect, but we think that certainly will improve that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. So I just wanted to say something about Quip as we kind of move into the managed care piece and where I think the opportunities are. Quip seems to be the only place where we're really we have an opportunity to pay nursing facilities more for quality, for doing a good job, for either being a good nursing home and participating in Medicaid or improving and participating in Medicaid. And I think the problem with Quip is while it's kind of a clever way to find a way to reimburse good nursing homes more and not grow GR, it's sort of restricted by definition. Because it's a Medicaid maximization scheme, it really is limited. And so it's only the facilities that can meet these specific criteria that can participate. But you may have other good nursing home out there who are serving Medicaid populations who either don't have 75% of their beds with Medicaid, or they didn't want to give their license over to a public hospital to be able to play in this scheme. And we just think that that's not the best public policy if we really want to use Medicaid dollars to drive quality. So it's good for the nursing homes that can participate, but probably not necessarily a good long-term strategy if we want to be inclusive about all those that play in Medicaid. I think it's really important to really kind of keep in mind as we've moved to Star Plus, the MCOs are really driving policy. What they do and how they serve clients is really what is driving the Medicaid program. They have essentially all the dollars for long-term services and supports for seniors. And we think it's really important that they're held accountable for making sure that Medicaid clients are getting services from quality providers. And in this case, really, we're talking about quality nursing homes and quality assisted living facilities. And there really isn't anything in the setup today that actually does hold them accountable for providing, for really kind of working with those providers that are providing the highest quality care. We have some data in Texas that says that about 12% of our nursing home population could be served in a less restrictive setting. So these are folks who could potentially be served at home or be served in an assisted living facility. We're not doing anything to kind of push MCOs to reduce that number. We're not really doing anything to push them to contract differently with the high quality nursing homes. And we think that's a real missed opportunity. We know from a recent study that in the Medicare Advantage world, which is kind of the Medicare piece that's in managed care, that those Medicare Advantage plans tend to contract with lower quality nursing homes, and that Medicare enrollees in Medicare Advantage tend to get care in lower quality nursing homes compared to Medicare beneficiaries in fee-for-service. I just think that's kind of a cautionary tale and one we should be aware of as we think about what happens on the Medicaid side. If you think about how it's set up right now for nursing homes, which is where we have a much more robust activity on the Medicaid side relative to assisted living, the state still sets the base rate. With the exception of Quip, I'm not aware of any nursing facility that's getting any more than the base rate. And I don't think that's how anybody envisioned this program working. I think people thought that good nursing homes would be able to leverage some power with an MCO who would want to have that good nursing home in their network. And we're just not seeing that happening. And I think that there are some things the state could be doing to push the system to move more in that direction. Let's see. So in the spirit of a few recommendations, I think the first thing I would say is that I expect when the provider panel comes up next that they will say they need rate increases. And we are not opposed to rate increases. But we do think that any rate increase really needs to be tied to quality. There clearly doesn't seem to be a problem getting folks to want to, providers in the nursing home world, more so on the assisted living side, but in the nursing home world, we don't seem to have a problem getting people to want to come and do business in Texas. And so I think when we think about rate increases, we really need to think about quality. I think on the nursing home side, the state should be looking to really establish some kind of financial incentives to hold the MCOs accountable for and to motivate them to contract with higher quality providers. We do that on the acute care side. We have a withhold that's designed to make sure that MCOs have some skin in the game. We don't really have that on the long-term care side. And I think that's really important, given the array of services that are contracted into Star Plus. And I think it's worth mentioning, too, that it shouldn't just be a carve-out of that 3% that we have on the acute care side now, because we have a relatively small number of nursing homes, about 1,200, and we have huge numbers of providers on the acute care side, and so I think it would be dwarfed. And so I think there's an argument for some sort of separate long-term services and supports carve-out, and specifically on the nursing home piece. For the MCOs, I think, they're starting to look at developing quality programs, and we think those quality programs need to kind of work in two directions. They need to reward the facilities that are already doing a good job. We sort of use that Medicare 5-star rating as kind of the gold standard. And then they also should be looking to motivate and reward those facilities that are trying to improve and that actually do meet benchmarks and start to improve. And those kinds of things could be reducing the rate of inappropriate use of antipsychotics, which is a big problem in Texas nursing homes, reducing the rate of bed sores, reducing falls. It could be increasing in your vaccine rate for flu and for influenza, pneumonia. It could be, adding an APRN to your staff at a nursing facility. We know these things are all make a difference. And so we think that piece is really important. On the assisted living facility side, we are sort of at the infancy of assisted living facilities in Medicaid and sort of transitioning to managed care. We don't have network adequacy standards. We don't have credentialing standards. We don't have any kind of performance standards, which are things that are sort of further along on the nursing home side. But we also think that the MCO should be doing more to utilize assisted living as a real option for people where it's appropriate. And I think that's an important caveat, but that it really needs to be appropriate. But again, here, and I'm sure you'll hear this from from the folks that are coming up to testify, but again, it's the base rate, and it sounds like nobody's willing to pay more than the base rate. And it seems like assisted living for a lot of folks could be a really good option if you have limited medical issues, but you need a little help and a little supervision. It could be a good option and less costly than nursing home care. So finally, I would just say, from an appropriations perspective, last session, HHSC lost 74 surveyor positions for surveying assisted living facilities. And we think it would be, given the fast rate of growth in that industry, that it's really important to review that and go back and restore some of those positions, if not all those positions, for surveyors. The surveyors are important for the buildings to open, but they're also important for ongoing safety and operation for the residents. And so we think that's something that needs to be considered. And then the other piece on assisted living is, again, we know very little about what's going on in assisted living. And there is a biennial survey that is funded to HHSC specifically for nursing facilities, and we think it's worth looking at whether or not we could move those funds from funding a nursing facility survey to funding an assisted living facility survey as a way of increasing the information about how consumers are doing, how assisted living facility operators are doing. So it's really kind of a moving of funds rather than any increase in funds. With that, I'm done. Happy to answer any questions.
Member, any questions? Okay, thank you. Earlier you said that one of the things that the MCOs need to focus on is providing incentives to get more high quality care, right? So, and this is the fight that we have pretty much every session, is ultimately, if the reimbursement rate is where it is, would any type of incentive program that they would be able to provide under the current funding structure be adequate to offset the low reimbursement rates? It's kind of like, I would suspect that a lot of high-quality providers don't participate because they're not going to get paid enough on the base level. If they come in and say, we're going to do the fantastic job and we're going to earn all the bonuses, even if that were true, would that be enough for them? And I'm not sure if you could answer that, or if that we need industry people to answer that.
What I can say is what I've observed, which is a couple of things. When the state moved nursing homes into Star Plus, it moved in a whole lot of money to go with that, and the MCOs now have essentially a global budget to manage long-term services and supports, and so. I think part of the piece and part of my message here is that we need to push the MCOs to maybe part with a little bit more money to actually pay those providers what they need to be paid to if they want them in their network. I think on the other side too, there's no doubt that our Medicaid rates are low, but for whatever reason, there are still providers who are fighting to get Medicaid beds. So I'm perplexed by the on the one hand, the rates are low because I know they're low. And at the same time, providers are sort of knocking down the door to get that Medicaid bed to be able to get a Medicaid bed.
And this is outside my scope of knowledge. So are those new providers that are knocking down the door, are they what we would consider high-quality providers?
I don't think we know unless they have a track record. I mean, we have a process in the state to kind of control Medicaid bed allocation, and you get preferential treatment for accessing those, for getting more Medicaid beds if you are high quality, and I think that's probably the right direction to go. But for new providers, I don't know that we know because there may not be a track record.
Thank you.
Testimony.
Thank you.